You're in the exam room. Your kid is up on that crinkly paper, and the doctor is smiling, and she's telling you everything looks fine. Probably a virus. Probably a phase. And your gut is sitting there, quietly screaming that it isn't. You can't point to it on a chart. You can't say it out loud without sounding like a tired mom worrying over nothing. But you know, the way you've known things about this child since before they could talk. And here's the part that follows you out to the parking lot, with the engine running and the radio off. It isn't the symptom, it's the look. The way somebody decided in about 90 seconds that you were the anxious one. And the worst part, a little voice in you agreed with them. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I'm making something out of nothing. So let's take it out and look at it. That feeling you couldn't name in there. The one everyone keeps gently talking you out of. Because I don't think it's nothing. And I don't think you're the anxious one. I think your instinct just did something it's very, very good at. And nobody in that room knew how to hear it. Stay with me a second. Here's the thing about a mother knowing something's wrong. It almost never shows up as a fact. It shows up as a feeling, a wrongness, a pull in your stomach you can't trace back to anything. And because it arrives as a feeling, everyone around you, and a big part of you, files it under emotion, under worry, under she's just being a mom about it. But a feeling is not the opposite of information. Sometimes a feeling is just information that hasn't finished translating yet. Think about what you actually do all day with this child. You watch them, constantly. Not in a way you'd even call watching. It's just on, all the time, running in the background. The exact pitch of their cry. How they hold their body when they're coming down with something versus when they're just tired and cranky. The look in their eyes on a normal Tuesday. You have logged thousands of hours on this one kid. Tens of thousands. Nobody else on earth has that data. Not the doctor who gets 15 minutes. Not your mother-in-law. Not the internet. So when something is off, even a little, your brain catches it before it can put it into words. It clocks that the cry is half a step wrong, that the color isn't quite right, that the stillness is the wrong kind of still. It runs that against every other day you've ever spent with them, and it sends up a flare. And the flare comes out as a feeling, because it moved faster than language could. That's what people mean when they say a mother just knows. It was never magic. It was never some mystical mom radar. It's pattern recognition, running at a speed your thinking mind can't keep up with. The most ordinary thing in the world, and the most extraordinary at the exact same time. The science behind what you already knew. And I want to name your first pushback, because I can feel it from here. You're thinking, okay, but I worry about everything. How do I know this is that, and not just my anxiety talking again? That's a real question. It might be the most important question in this whole thing, and we are going to get there. I am not going to tell you your gut is never wrong. That would be a lie, and you'd know it. But before we sort the signal from the noise, I need you to stop doing one thing. I need you to stop treating the feeling itself as proof that you're being ridiculous. Because that part is exactly where they got you. And that part isn't true. Let me tell you what's actually happening in your body when that alarm goes off, because it changes how you hear it. You know that 2:30 in the afternoon when everything looks normal and you still can't shake the feeling? Or the night you stood over the crib at 2 in the morning and your kid was breathing and there was nothing to point to and you still couldn't make yourself walk back to bed? That isn't nothing happening. That's a system working. When you became a mother, your brain changed. Not in a cute, I left my keys in the fridge way, though, sure, that too. I mean it physically reorganized. Pregnancy and those early months remodel the parts of your brain that read other people. They tune you, specifically, to pick up on this small human signals, to notice distress fast, to respond before you've even consciously decided to. It's not a flaw, and it's not fog. It's a finely calibrated instrument, built for exactly one job: keeping this child alive while this child can't speak for themselves. So when that instrument picks something up, it doesn't politely wait for you to gather evidence. It doesn't care that you can't explain it yet. It just fires. Because for most of human history, the mother who waited for proof before she acted on a bad feeling didn't pass her genes down. The ones who moved, who picked the baby up, who said no, who turned the car around and went back, those are the ones we all come from. You are the descendant of 10,000 women who trusted the feeling. It is in you for a reason. Now, here's where I have to be honest with you, because the easy version of this video would just tell you that you're always right and the doctors are always wrong. And that's not true. And you deserve better than a comforting lie. The same system that protects you can also misfire. Anxiety can wear your instinct's exact coat. Fear can put on the same outfit and walk in pretending to be your gut. And if you've ever lived with real anxiety, you know it doesn't feel different in the moment. It feels just as urgent, just as certain, just as much like knowing. So how do you tell them apart? It isn't perfect, but here's the truest test I've found. Real instinct usually points at something specific. This child, this symptom, this situation, right now. It's quiet and it's clear, and once you act on it, once you make the call, ask the question, go back in, it settles, even a little. Anxiety is different. Anxiety is loud, and it's everywhere, and it doesn't point at one thing. It floods. It jumps from the rash to the fever, to the thing you read at midnight, to the thing that might happen 6 months from now. And when you act on anxiety, it doesn't settle. It just finds the next thing to grab. Instinct says, something is wrong with my child. I'm going to get it checked. Anxiety says, something is always about to be wrong, and I will never be allowed to rest. One is a flare. The other is a smoke alarm with a dying battery going off at toast. Learning the difference between those two is one of the most freeing things you will ever do as a mother. Not so you can shut your instinct up, so you can finally trust it again, because now you'll know what it actually sounds like. But even once you can hear it clearly, there's still the harder problem. And it has almost nothing to do with your gut, and everything to do with what you learn to do with it. So let me say this as plainly as I know how. The hard part was never figuring out whether your gut is right. You've been carrying it like that's the question. Am I right? Am I overreacting? Am I crazy? But that's not the wound. That was never the wound. Here's where the whole thing turns. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your read of your own child doesn't count until someone with a degree agrees with it. That your knowing is only a feeling until a professional upgrades it to a fact. That you're allowed to notice something, but you're not allowed to act on it. Not without permission, not without proof, not without somebody more important than you signing off first. That's the wound, not your instinct, your trust in it. They didn't break your gut in that exam room. They broke your confidence in your right to have one. And I want you to sit with how strange that actually is. You are the world's leading expert on this one specific human being. There is no one more qualified. And you've been trained by doctors who were rushed, by family who meant well, by a whole culture that treats a worried mother like a problem to manage, to treat your own expertise as the least reliable thing in the room. Think about how many times it's happened. The nurse line that said, wait and see. The let's monitor it. The pediatrician who looked for 90 seconds and sent you home. And maybe most of the time, they were right, and it passed, and it really was just a virus. I'm not telling you they were all wrong. I'm telling you that even when they were right, something got taught to you in those moments. You learned to hand over the one thing that was actually yours. And it doesn't stop when they get bigger. It just changes costume. The teacher who says he's fine, he's just shy. The coach who says she's just being dramatic. The well-meaning everyone who says, that's just teenagers. That's just a phase. You're reading way too much into it. You watch your kid go quiet in a way that isn't their normal quiet, and it lands in your stomach, the exact same flare you felt when they were 6 months old. And you get the exact same message you've always gotten. You're overthinking it. Calm down. He's fine. The kid changes. The dismissal doesn't. Different age, same lesson, drilled in one more time. Don't trust the thing only you can feel. And here's the cost. The part that breaks my heart a little. It isn't only about the times you were right and weren't heard, though those happen. And you probably know a mother it happened to. Or you are her. It's that after enough of it, you stop hearing yourself. You get a feeling, and before it's even finished forming, you've already talked yourself out of it. Already pictured the doctor's patient face. Already decided you're the dramatic one. You've taken the dismissal so far inside that now you do it to yourself, for free, before anyone else gets the chance. That's the real thing nobody put a name to. You didn't lose your instinct. You learned to apologize for it. Your instinct was never the problem. The problem was that you got taught your knowing needed a co-signer. And I have to be so clear here, because this is the part that matters. Trusting yourself again does not mean ignoring doctors. It is not you against medicine. The strong version of this is not a mother who refuses every expert. It's a mother who walks in knowing her observations are data, not hysteria. Who can say, calmly, I hear you, and I'm still not satisfied. Can we look closer? Who asks the second question? Who gets the second opinion? Who simply will not be rushed out the door in 90 seconds without a real look? That isn't being difficult. That's being the one person in the room whose entire job is this child. You're allowed to respect the expert and still refuse to disappear. So if the wound is that you learn to doubt your own knowing, then the healing isn't louder certainty. It's something gentler than that. And it starts with how you treat yourself the very next time that feeling shows up. So let's do something. Right now, wherever you are. The pickup line, the kitchen, the pile of laundry. 30 seconds hiding in the bathroom for some quiet. I want you to picture another woman, a friend, your sister, someone you love. And she calls you, and her voice is doing that thing, that trying hard to sound calm thing. And she says, I think something's wrong with my baby. I took him in and they said he's fine, but I can't shake it, and I feel insane, and maybe I'm just being a crazy mom. What do you tell her? You don't tell her she's crazy. The thought wouldn't even cross your mind. You'd say, you know your kid. Go back. Ask again. Push if you have to. Better to feel a little foolish than to sit at home ignoring it. Trust your gut. You'd say it instantly, without a flicker of doubt, because when it's someone you love, the answer is just obvious. Of course, she should trust herself. Of course, her knowing counts. So here's the question I want to leave sitting in the middle of the room. Why is she allowed all of that? I can't wait to see it. The benefit of the doubt. The permission to trust herself. The second opinion without an ounce of shame. Why is she allowed all of it, and you're allowed none of it? Why does every other mother on earth deserve to be believed, except the one you actually are? I'm not asking to make you feel bad. I'm asking because I think you already know the answer. And the answer isn't fair. And seeing it is how it starts to loosen its grip. You hold yourself to a standard you would never put on someone you love. You demand proof from yourself that you'd never dream of demanding from her. You call it being responsible. But a lot of the time, it's just the dismissal again, wearing your own voice now. So here is the kindest thing I know how to tell you. You are allowed to be the friend who believes you. You're allowed to talk to yourself in that exam room the way you'd talk to her on the phone. Hey, you know this kid. It's okay to ask again. You're not being dramatic. You're being their mother. That voice, the warm one, the one you save for everybody else, turn it around. Point it at yourself for once. Not because you're always right, because you are worth the same benefit of the doubt you hand out to every other woman without thinking twice. And that's not indulgence. It's the most practical thing in the world, because a mother who trusts herself asks the question that gets the answer. And a mother who's been taught to doubt herself drives home quietly and just hopes she was wrong. So here's a new way to see the whole thing. And it asks less of you than the old way, not more. The old way said, "My gut is just a feeling, so I have to wait until I've got proof before I'm allowed to do anything." The new way says, "My gut is information, and information is enough to act on. Not enough to be certain, enough to ask. You don't need to be right to be allowed to check. You just need to care, and you do." So the next time that feeling shows up, and it will, I don't want you to do anything dramatic. I'm not asking you to march in and diagnose your kid off the internet at midnight. I'm asking you to do one small, kind of radical thing. I'm asking you to take your own feelings seriously before anybody else weighs in. That looks like writing it down, not the panic, the observation. He's not eating the way he eats. The cry is different, and here's how. This started Tuesday. 3 sentences. Because when you turn the feeling into specifics, 2 things happen. You find out fast whether it's instinct pointing at something real or anxiety flooding everything at once. And you walk into that room with notes instead of a vague dread that's easy to wave off. You stop being the worried mom. You become the mom with the timeline. And those are very, very hard to dismiss. It looks like asking the second question. Okay, you think it's nothing. What would it look like if it were something? What are we watching for? When do I bring him back? You're not fighting the doctor. You're just refusing to leave with nothing. There's a difference, and you can feel it the second you do it. It looks like one sentence I want you to keep in your back pocket. I hear you, and I'm still not comfortable. Can we look a little closer? That's it. Calm. Not a fight. Just a mother who won't be hurried out the door. Most of the time, the answer will reassure you, and you'll drive home lighter than you came. Sometimes it won't, and you will be so glad you stayed. Either way, you didn't abandon yourself to get it. And here's the permission. The thing I most want you to walk away holding. You do not need anyone's signature to take your own child seriously. Not mine. Not a doctor's. Not your mother's. The noticing was always allowed. The acting on it was always allowed. You were just the one who needed to hear that. Not because you forgot how to be a mother, but because somewhere along the line, somebody convinced you that you had to be granted a feeling you were already having. You don't. It's yours. It always was. So tomorrow, this changes one small thing. The next time your stomach drops about your kid, there's going to be that half second where the old voice says, "You're overreacting, don't make a fuss." And instead of obeying it, you're going to get to pause and ask, quietly, without apologizing for it. That half second is the whole thing. That's where you come back to yourself. Your instinct was never the problem. It was the one thing in that room that was working. So let's go back to that exam room. The one from the beginning. The crinkly paper, the 90-second smile, the feeling in your chest that wouldn't nod along. I want you to picture walking out of it differently. Not angrier, not at war with anybody. Just still holding your own knowing on the way to the car, instead of leaving it behind on that table. That's the whole shift. You don't have to win an argument. You just have to stop handing the most important instrument you own to whoever happens to be standing in the room. And listen, none of this is a straight line. You're going to have days where the old voice wins, where you talk yourself out of a feeling and then lie awake wishing you hadn't. That doesn't mean it didn't work. Coming back to yourself isn't something you do once. It's something you practice. Some days you'll trust your gut beautifully. Some days you'll second guess it right into the ground. Both are just part of learning to hear yourself again after a long time of being told not to. And I have to say one more thing, gently, because it matters. If that feeling never turns off, if it isn't one clear flare about one real thing, but a constant flood, every single day, about everything, the kind that's running your whole life and stealing your sleep, that is worth taking seriously too. Not as a failure, as a sign that you deserve support. Sometimes the kindest, strongest thing a mother can do is sit down with someone she trusts or a good therapist and get help telling the signal from the noise. Trusting yourself and asking for help are not opposites. They're the same kind of courage. The one thing I want you to carry out of this: your instinct was never the thing that needed fixing. Your right to trust it was the thing that got taken. And you can take it back. Not in one big dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small ones. The next pause, the next question, the next time you believe yourself before anyone else has weighed in. You knew something was wrong, and they told you that you were just a tired, worried mom. And maybe you were tired. Maybe you were worried. You were also paying attention in a way no one else in that room could. You always knew. Trust the knowing. If this is the voice you didn't know you needed today, stay a while. There's more of this here. For the pickup line, the kitchen, the middle of the night you can't explain, the hard afternoons, whenever you need it. I'll keep showing up if you will. You're doing better than you think. Trust the knowing. It's older than all the advice.